Hello, welcome to One Foot In. My name is Juliana, and today I want to talk to you about imaginary friends. Now, we've all heard imaginary friends. It's something that our parents tell us when we are having a tea party or playing dolls or trucks with someone that we as children can see, but our parents can't. There is no such thing as an imaginary friend, my friends. Imaginary friends are spirit guides or house ghosts. Could be something a little more serious like a poltergeist or an angel or a demon, but they are very, very real. And because children have no filters or inhibitions, self-doubt that adults do, the pure and genuine openness of the hearts and minds of children lend them vulnerable to unseen forces. And sometimes those spirits realize that a child might be lonely or struggling and they want to render comfort. Perhaps they're bored and the kid is the only one that knows they're there, so they'll reach out to that kid. They'll make contact that way. Maybe they are genuinely, benevolent and they're wanting to haunt the place or possess your kid or whatever. Those things do happen. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that imaginary friends are a bad thing. And I believe that our parents have good intentions when they say, "Oh, look at that, Junior's playing with his imaginary friend again." It's a way to comfort themselves subconsciously more than it is to comfort the kid. Because like our pets, children see, they walk with one foot in that paranormal world that we don't or no longer do because we are grown-ups and we have a grown-up life to live and grown-up responsibilities, and that kind of gets shoved to the background. Like when you become a teenager and it's time to send your dolls to the thrift store. But there are those of us who grow up to continue living with one foot in. Now, sometimes I think there are children out there who pretend to have an imaginary friend for attention, because not everybody can communicate with the dead. But pay attention to your children if they're having conversations or they're playing with an unseen individual. Start asking them questions. You'd be surprised. It might be your great aunt who has passed on or your grandfather that's passed on. It could be someone attached to the house that you live in. Could be their spirit guide. They could be angel talkers, where they've been chosen to be an intermediary between us and angelic ethereal beings. Now, I know you have to tell your children something because, we want to spare our children from scary things. And if something scares you, you're going to oftentimes train your kid to be afraid of the same things. But an imaginary friend is more than likely a spirit guide or the spirit of a loved one who's passed on and come back. And they are entertaining your children and they are giving them attention that you might not be able to give them at that moment because you're working so much or, you're busy running around, which isn't your fault. We all have to work, right? We all have to earn a living, and we have to keep our homes clean and our pets cared for and whatnot. So we're not always there for them. And I think that it's important not to tell your child, not to discount it and say that it's cute or it's funny or they're imaginary. Don't call them an imaginary anymore. Call them something else. Ask questions from your child. Is your friend a boy or a girl? A grown-up or a kid? What are their names? What do they look like? How often do they come to play? Do they go places with us? Ask them meaningful questions and find out. Because if it is a malevolent entity, you're going to want to address that. But if it's, the spirit of your grandpa or your great aunt or sister or whatever, that's okay. They're coming back to let you know they're okay, and they're going to help you out by watching the kid for you so you can go do a load of laundry. So the next time you catch your child talking to somebody that isn't there, don't discount it. Don't call it imaginary. You're diminishing their ability, whether it's a permanent or temporary ability, because, most people outgrow their imaginary friends, meaning that the friend doesn't really necessarily go away, but they do go into the background, if you will. Don't diminish your child's experience. Don't treat your child like a joke. Take it seriously. And let your gut do some of the talking for you. Is this friend asking them to do things they shouldn't? Is this friend causing personality deviances in your child? Really let your gut in on the conversation, because you do want to know if this is a dangerous situation for your child or if it's a harmless house ghost just wanting to play dolls with your kid. There is nothing imaginary about imaginary friends. So let's stop calling them that. Let's call them what they are. Unseen companions. Spirits, entities, something. Find something, but don't call them imaginary. And treat your child with the respect and reverence they deserve. Because for most of us, that precious window of time in our childhood where we can see the imaginary friends, where we can communicate with them, sometimes that's what gets us through to the next phase of our lives. I know I had an imaginary friend growing up. That's how my mom realized that something was afoot. My imaginary friend was a spirit. I, to this day, couldn't tell you who they were necessarily. They would appear in the traditional white man form of Jesus with the, golden hair and the light skin and the blue eyes, which we all know is not even close to accurate. But my family had this very ancient, ginormous, super, super, super heavy, like 2 people to carry Bible that my grandmother used to handwrite the family's names in on the family tree and different things. And it had it was, golden edges of the paper and the leather bounding cover. And it had this very thin, tissue-y kind of pages, but it had thicker pages that had full color paintings on them. And they were so big. And I would spend hours just pushing the pages around, smelling the smell from that book, examining and falling into those paintings. And I'm sure that at some level I was taking a comfort in that. And that's where I got that image of Jesus. And that's the image that I projected upon my imaginary friend. But this friend would sit across from me. We would chit-chat all the time. And what really cued my mom into something going on was she was preparing lunch for me one day, and she asked what I was drawing, because I never went anywhere without writing implements and paper. I actually had a little purse that my mom made for me that I could carry my paper and my crayons and pencils in, even before I was in kindergarten. And I lost the purse briefly, and I almost had a nervous breakdown as a little kid, because I couldn't find it. And I had to have it. And I was drawing this, I'm a crappy drawer, but, for what like a 4 or 5 year old could do. And I was drawing him as he was sitting across from me, and he would talk to me without moving his lips. And my mom said, "Oh, who are you talking to?" And I said, "My friend." "What friend?" I said, "The guy that's sitting there, the man." And she says, "Oh, well, what are you drawing?" I said, "I'm drawing the man." And I drew the man, and it was Jesus. And my mom took it from me. And the next thing I know, she's got this psychic that she's been, talking to. A few years later, she calls him up. But from that initial point, that's when she realized there was something up. And for a few years, she would ask me questions and ask if I could see something, or if my imaginary friend was there. And, she would talk to her friends about it. And then about 3 years later is when she actually contacted the psychic to come and have a visit with me. And I don't believe that the unseen friend that I had was actually, Jesus. But they appeared that way because they knew that would be familiar to me from that family Bible, and that I would be comforted by that. Because sometimes your imaginary friend or your unseen friend is of an origin where they look absolutely terrifying in their natural state, i.e. ETs. ETs can be absolutely terrifying in their natural state. And my entire family was plagued by ETs. Harassed, menaced. We experienced every possible aspect of ET interaction. My entire family. In the house that we were in when I grew up, we all experienced it. And that added to the paranormal experience that I had as a child growing up. So it wasn't just paranormal, spiritual experiences, but it was extraterrestrial as well, and ethereals as well, and portals and all kinds of unseen things. But for me, I believe it started with my unseen friend, or what's most commonly known as an imaginary friend, which I can't emphasize enough how we need to stop calling it imaginary, because they're not imaginary. They're very real. They're very real to the child that is experiencing this. And you shouldn't discredit them. You shouldn't diminish their experiences, because it could be quite meaningful, and it could be lifelong. As they grow and get past adolescence into adulthood, this could be one of the many gifts that they were blessed with prior to being born here into the person that they are. They could very well be empaths or mediums. They could be many, many, many things, healers. So don't discount them. Don't call them imaginary, because they are very real. And until next time, I love you all.